Hey traders, Mike Katz bringing you today's trader takeaways from 7 Points Capital. We had a couple of stocks that were in play today, both of them in the biotech space. And this area has been having some decent action between the specific news that comes out in individual stocks or between the Donald Trump, the president, coming out and bashing the drug makers and the biotechs about their drug pricing and all. Seems to be there's a lot of action. And today, for example, if you look at IBB, there was a pretty big drop when the president said that they're making too much money and they're charging the U.S. higher prices than they are other countries. And you can see that the biotech sector as a whole, the ETF just took a dip. So I think that biotechs as a whole, they've had decent action in addition to the individual news pieces that you see coming out in these. The sector as a whole also has some macro news as well. So one stock that we were in today was TGTX. And this one was a stock that back in March we traded, and it had gapped up above $10 and held $10. And the news back then was that they were going to fast track, the FDA was going to fast track the approval of one of their drugs because there's a need for it, obviously. So the stock held well pretty much since March, and all the shorts really didn't have any relief sell-offs to cover. So there was some pretty big moves to the upside against the short sellers, and then a lot of sideways. So when we came in today, the piece of news was that after reviewing their phase 3 application, their drugs, basically the FDA said, well, we're not going to be able to give you that fast track approval as easily as we thought. So that weighed on the stock, and we can see that the stock gapped down below $10 and closed pretty weak on the daily. So today's setup was where the pre-market drop was pretty quick, came back off of 820 and rallied about a couple of dollars to $10, all pre-market. And then when the market opened, we started out 920 area, 925, and rallied all the way to 1015-ish right here. Wasn't doing anything here at all, letting the stock figure out what it wants to do. And then it started getting sideways, starting to show some lower highs. And at this point I was saying, okay, we have 960 as a low here, and we bounced to about 990, roughly $10. Came back to 960 again, back here again. And then all of a sudden we started drifting lower with lower low, lower high. And at this point, where at around 980, it looked like it couldn't make it back up to $10. It looked like it was curling back down to potentially make a lower high. And that was my entry, where 980, 975, 970, I was able to get in. It took a while to get in because it wasn't easy to fill on the short side. But the stop was going to be 10.05. So basically I was risking about 30 cents on the trade and got in here, broke VWAP, started going sideways, staircasing lower and then sideways, staircasing lower and sideways again. And basically it gave a nice setup where I ended up covering some right here on the close, and 925 and 930 I believe were my outs here. So I ended up making about 45 cents, risking 30 cents, roughly 1.5 hours on the profit side. Not a fantastic trade, but a good one in the sense that if this was going to try to make it back to $8 and potentially retest and start filling this gap between 9 and 6, I was very willing to let it work and let this turn into a 5-hour trade, a 10-hour trade, and so on and so forth. So it ended up being a 1-hour trade. Okay, not great, but we'll take it. But the nice thing is that I was able to sit there and say, if it's going to work, I'm going to let it work. I'm not going to trim too early and cut off the trade and have, a very small portion of my position when it works. This was one of those trades where I was saying, okay, if it works, I'll let it work. Like I said, if I can end up with a big trade, like a 5-hour trade, 10-hour trade, that's what I was shooting for. And as a trader, I think that's really what you can ask yourself, right? When you're wrong, you lose 1 hour. lose a little bit, 30, 40 cents. And then when you're right, if you can try to maximize and catch those moves where you're making 5 Rs, 3 Rs, 10 Rs, sometimes you end up with a scratch, sometimes you end up with 1 R. But basically, you're giving the trade a chance to make multiples of what you're risking, and as traders, I think that's what we need to do. So, I'm happy with this trade, even though it ended up only being a 1 hour trade, and it ended up being a decent one. I will have this on my radar for tomorrow. If we look, we had this low here of 9.15 or 9.10ish on the first day it gapped up, and then afterwards $10 was the level we kept bouncing off of once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. So today, when we actually gapped below $10, whatever is support becomes resistance, and that's why I think we got rejected by that $10 area right here. Let's go back to the same chart we were looking at before, and that's the $10 level right there. Whatever was support and we held multiple times ended up being resistance, and it's important to know the levels that are significant in my stock. So that's TGTX. I'll be watching this one tomorrow. If it actually ends up opening slightly green, I might put this trade back on again versus that $10 over under level and see how it behaves. So potentially have a much bigger trade. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but the room next door, they're doing the end of day recaps. Bunch of laughter, I guess, going over some good trades. All right, what else we have here? The other symbol that we had was ANAB, ANAB. This was a symbol that we were in last week. Me personally on Friday. Last week there was a big move where the stock rallied huge, gapped up to 53, I think it was, held 50 and then ripped up to 70 all in the same day. Obviously a big mover. We had a doji, put a pause to the rally. Then we had another candle that really couldn't close near the highs, left the topping tail again. And then on Friday we had a candle that again couldn't stay near the high of the day, ended up closing near the low of the day. But there was something significant going on here on Friday. If we could look at that real quick, we can see that this is our 15-minute chart. We can see the big lift, and if we can zoom in a little bit here, we'll see that since we had that big lift, lots and lots and lots of volume traded here at the 70 level, right? You can see all the sideways volume showing that there's a lot more volume traded at 70 than any other level. And that's because it spent a lot of sideways time, a lot of time going sideways. And we can see even on the intraday, on the 15-minute, we had quite a few topping tails, and those were the ones I think with volume. We can see here that this red candle had volume as a topping tail. We can see here that this lift had a topping tail, as did this one. And every time we can see that it gets rejected by this 72 area, right? So we basically fast forward to Friday, keeping that 70, 72 area in mind, and we can see that there was news on Friday where they announced there was a secondary offering. 68.50 was the offering price. And I remember getting involved here. Let's see, I think it was watching the 68.50 level. I believe that the underwriters who brought the secondary offering, maybe they were defending the stock. If you're an underwriter and you want to have clout and you want to get more business from companies in the future, you don't want the stock to just collapse below your offering price. That means that everybody you offered the secondary shares to are just dumping it in the open market. And if I'm a company, I don't want to see that with my shares. So most likely, I think that there was some defending going on here. 68.50 was the offering price, and that was the level that held. So it was significant, and it was very visible for that level to hold. And then it bounced off of it. So I remember trying this on Friday, where I got involved, I believe here, 69.70, 69.80 area, and wanted to see if this was going to curl back down and get rejected by that 70 area. But on Friday, it just ended up going sideways and getting pinned to that 70 level. And so I just closed it out thinking that if I was going to take this home, it needs to close weak, which it didn't. So I closed it out and then, puked it out a little bit on the close. But coming in this morning, I remembered that there was the 70 level that was significant. And as we came up and got rejected by 70 this morning, we came down back to 60, low 69s. And on this pop here, I was able to get in and put some stock out and give it to about $1 worth of risk. I think it was 69.80 was my average price here, and I had a stop here of above 70.50 and risking a little less than $1 or so. And the stock just started going down right away. And what you want to see with your best setups is basically that it starts working right away. In my opinion, my best trades are going to be the ones where my timing is right and my thesis is right, and the stock is starting to pay me off right away. So this one started working right away, started going lower, never really gave too much of a retracement, and I just sat on it most of the day. At this point here, let's see, I think I trimmed actually maybe 20% of the position when we got close to this 68.50, because when we got 68.50, basically I was thinking, okay, if it bounces off of 68.50 again, I want to have covered some and locked some profit in. So I covered about 20% to give me ammo just in case it does lift and come back and try to retest 70 again. So I would have some ammo to put out some more shares again. So I covered 20%, but it ended up just going through it, and I just kept 80% of the position, and it just kept drifting lower and lower all day. And that's pretty much where I'm at, going out at the end of the day. So this was a nice one. Once again, knowing the levels from previous days, knowing the price action, and trying to figure out what's going on, what are the big participants doing here, and can I just join the trend, and can I jump on board a trend where I can risk $1 to try to make 5, risk $1 to try to make 10, right? So that's basically what I'm looking for in my trades. That way I don't have to try to figure out and be right on every trade. All I have to do is just make more when I'm right and lose less when I'm wrong, and that should play out where I don't even have to be right 50% of the time. If I'm losing $1 but I'm making $5 on my next trade, I only have to be right once in a while in order just to break even. So that's the power of having control with controlling the risk side and letting the profits work out. So these were 2 stocks that we traded today. Decent day, more stocks starting to report. Right now Netflix is probably reporting as we speak, so I'm about to jump off and go check out the quotes and see if there's any trades for us to do in after hours. Otherwise, there'll be more stocks to report tomorrow morning and after the bell. So there's quite a bit going on. And I want to thank you all for watching our trader takeaway from 7 Points Capital. Hit the like button if you like this. Subscribe. And, we also put out some content on Twitter and LinkedIn. Follow us there to make sure you get the updates. Thanks.